Hi Adeayo, how are you doing?
I'm good. Good morning.
Good morning. Such a cool day.
Yep. Really warm.
All right, so let's get right into it. So today we're talking about consumers' obsession with numbers.
Yeah.
So what is the impact of tech and data on Nigerian music?
Let's start with the impact of tech on music generally. I
Mm.
think with tech, we're able to get to record music in a way that you can listen to it later. I think music moved from live performance to recording. So you could record, play on the gramophone, then went to like it kept evolving cassettes, CDs, and stuff. So like pretty much technology allows us to listen to music in a different way. So in terms of data and tech, how to Nigerian music, aside from the being able to record music and sell instead of live performance, like instead of having to listen to it live, it impacted the way we distribute and access music in terms of democratization. Like the scene has changed drastically compared to what it was 20 years ago, 15 years ago, even 10 years ago. When you had to go buy your CD and you have to walk up into a shop, look for the CD, wait till it drop, you go buy, you listen to it. Now you just have to pick up your phone and stream music. And I mean, that's access, that's democratization. Then you need to go for maybe an emerging artist. Then it was a struggle dropping music. It's very, very difficult dropping music then, because you need like capital, a marketer that's going to like distribute the music. That means you have to have some capital and someone willing to invest in you, where they'll print CDs with a guarantee or with some sort of guarantee that they're going to make back their investment. But now all you need as an emerging artist is a couple thousand naira, and you could register in any of these distributors, DistroKid, TuneCore, and you upload your music, and that's all. And you put out a tweet that I've shared my music, go listen to stuff like that. So it's been democratized, access is easier. So that's the way numbers has impacted Nigerian music like significantly. And in terms of data now, like this is where we're going to, in terms of like that's the tech. In terms of data numbers, how it has impacted music, right? I think we've moved, like it's changed the way we view music in terms of even marketing. For example, how like do we consider sales then? Like, okay, success, like the metric for success then, it's maybe an artist covers a magazine, you drop an album and you the face of a magazine, then how fast that magazine gets to sell out. That's a metric for success. Maybe how fast your CD sells out in the first day, the first week, in the first month. Those are metric for success. Maybe you have a merchandise, and how many people get to buy your T-shirt and stuff like that. That's also a metric for success. But this has changed drastically. It's now the CDs, cassette has become streaming numbers, and daily streaming numbers, weekly streaming numbers. This is how data has impacted the way we consider sales, and the metric for success has also moved to chatting. I mean, chat has always existed, at least for advanced markets, but now also in Nigerian music industry, it carries more significance than that ever does. It ever did, and I don't think it even existed before this time. So we're going to have to credit it to data, because chats, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we had chats in the 60s, 80s, 70s. I don't know. Nothing that I've seen suggests that. Right. So I'll just say data created chat. Nigerian chat has really, really changed the way we view music, the way we appreciate music. Now, if you're going to consider the success of a song, the success of a project, you're going to hear things about, oh, how many weeks did he spend on number one and this so chart? Did he get Apple Music number one? Did he get Spotify number one? Did he get Turntable number one? Were you able to chart on Billboard 200, which UK chart, like the entire UK chart, were you able to chart in France, in Europe? So these things have altered the way which we see music, in terms of like we appreciate music, we quantify success, and the metrics we use as well. So these are what these are the way data have generally impacted the Nigerian music scene.
So, how has this, we've talked about how data and tech has changed things. So, how has this affected the appreciation of music?
Like with data, conversation is different. Back then, if for example, when Superstar dropped recently, Superstar celebrated its 30th anniversary recently, I think on Wednesday. So it dropped June 12th, 2011. When the album dropped, and during that period, we're talking about the album, we talk about the influence, its impact, what it means to us then, how it was like the feeling seeing a 20-year-old, you know, being a superstar, like taking over the world, being so amazing, being so famous, and what it means to you as a teenager, what it means to a generation. That's how it feels. And although by eye test, you could tell, okay, it was successful. Like it was viral, people were talking about it, they loved. You could see the CDs around them. Like the conversation would generally revolve around what we see, the visuals, what we embody, like the embodiment of what we understand to be swag, the definition of swag, and how Whiskey embodies this, right? So that's like the quality of the song, how the song feels, like how it puts you in the party mood and stuff like that. That's what we'll talk about. But right now, if ordinary listeners, everyday listeners are going to talk about music, you're going to hear things about how many did he chart on Billboard, did he get to, how many weeks did he spend on Apple Music #1, bring out the streaming numbers, let's see. So our appreciation of music has gone very, very significantly from a quality base, an impact base, and an influence base to a performance base. So that's what numbers has done to us, and it's also it's affecting the way we appreciate music, and it's affecting the way we also make music. Because even now, artists understandably would have to make music that sells, that performs, like, because it's I don't want to say maybe it's obvious, but it's very, very, it might not be presumptuous to say that the average Nigerian consumers are not really focused on quality. They focus on what is popular. And although what is popular is what is marketed to be popular, what they put a lot of machineries behind, and a lot of machinery behind, and a lot of like money behind, funding behind to make popular. But at the end of the day, it is what the consumer accepts, and what tends to be popular, it's necessarily not subjected to quality, a test of quality. Just whatever feels catchy or whatever feels trendy enough. So, this all ties back to the appreciation, like the obsession, what I would call an obsession with numbers. And so the way we're making music, the way labels even kind of like maybe go for talents, the way they want their artists to make music, and generally the entire ecosystem, right? So it's I think what, how will I put this? I think we're in an attention-based economy. You need to make a lot of noise. You need to try to get attention, and for you to get attention, you need to do something that kind of like sticks you out of the crowd. Because while streaming platform and tech has democratized music distribution, and make access easier, it also has led to saturation, which is in itself not a bad thing, but there's a lot of content out there, a lot. So, and for you to like maybe stick out, quality might not be enough anymore. So it's about how I'm doing stuff that no one else is doing. How I am the first Nigerian artist to debut on this Indian chart. How I am the first Nigerian artist to spend 14 weeks on a chart in Portugal. Things like that are like historical, and that gets attention, right? So it tends to trend more, and that's why stands, they are the biggest amplifiers of numbers. Like they get to talk about it, they get to throw it around in every conversation. So that is this is how like numbers has greatly impacted the way we view, we appreciate music, we view music. So I don't know, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it also has its positive and its.
Yeah, coming to that, positive and negative, what would you say are the positives and negatives of this?
Yeah, so the positive is that numbers give us perspective. It tells us, okay, this is who's listening to music, this is how big Nigeria's streaming demography is, and this is like the market that needs to be conquered and needs to be penetrated, and we know what's going on pretty much. So data gives perspective to both to the artist labels, the ecosystem in general. Even as an artist, with data, you know where to consolidate your strength, you know where to invest resources and stuff like that. So that's the positive, right? It also helps us to document. Like we have to add that part. Like data helps us to document things in real time. And I think one of the reasons why I feel there's like a limited appreciation for the rich history of Nigerian music is because of inadequate documentation. There's that part, and there's also, and I mean, the documentation flows from the fact that people don't know what these people achieved. Like for example, Prince Nico Mbaga, his song "Sweet Mother," like very popular song, is one of the highest selling songs in the world. One of the best selling songs in the world. I think sold more than the Beatles and a couple other huge artists. I think it's top 20 in the world, and a lot of people don't know this, and because there's no documentation of how he achieved it. I mean, there's Majek Fashek. At the peak of his powers, he was selling out shows in the Caribbean, and he had people going crazy. People were coming to his concerts with umbrellas because they believe he was going to actually make it rain. So we don't get to appreciate, like, the current generation, at least let's say people under 30, do not really get to appreciate this fact because it is not well documented. So whatever you're doing now, it sounds new, even though it has been done in the past. For example, if you recall when Dr. Adewale Ayuba came and we were interviewing him and he was talking about how he was signed to Sony Music. I was like, really, Sony? And I mean, a lot of us didn't even know Sony. They were on ground then, so there was no. We don't appreciate this fact. Like if we kind of like compare to the Americans, right? Like look at Billboard now. Whatever you're trying to do now is on record that someone did it before, like in the 70s. Whatever you're trying to do, maybe Elvis Presley did. If you try to get a couple of number ones on the chart, Michael Jackson did. So it's celebrated. So when Drake got closer to Michael Jackson's Billboard #1 record, he was singing it in a song. He'll say, I'm one next to Michael Jackson. So so it's there, it's contextualized, right? So we're not able to, like in the past, they're not able to contextualize things, but now we're able to do so, and that is thanks to data, right? And thanks to documentation, because now this data, all we need to do is document it. We don't know how far they were collecting data then. What we just know is word of mouth. Like for example, Two-Face was said to have sold out entire copy of his album in hours. I think it's his second album, that would be Grace to Grace, in hours after it dropped. They said, and a marketer in Alabama bought the whole thing, and that's the only person you could get it from. Like they printed 5 million copies, and the guy bought the whole thing. And if you wanted to buy that, you had to get it from him. So that's record. Like he sold out 5 million copies in a few hours, right? So these things are not documented. We have to rely on oral history, right? But now we're able to document due to data. We know, okay, these are the streaming numbers. These are the units that were sold. For example, we just realized yesterday, or news came out yesterday, that Burna Boy set a new touring record in Canada for an African artist. He also sold out the highest touring venue for an African artist in the US. So we're able to document these things, and they're there. So that's the positive, right? On the negative, there's an obsession. There's clearly an obsession with it, where people would do anything for the numbers because that is what matters. And even streaming farm is a result of this obsession with numbers, because numbers, they are a vanity metric, and artists will always do whatever it is necessary to give them that vanity metric, or that semblance or reflection of success. Before stream farming, we had artists buying their own CDs. In America, they were buying their own CDs, juicing up the numbers just so they could say, I sold so amount of CDs in the first week, right? So now, like, there's no sort of technology, or there's no sort of evolution when it comes to music consumption that artists will not necessarily find their way around. So this obsession with numbers, and the way everyone is trying to be the first to do this, the first to do that, I mean, it's good. It's good, and it's good that we're documenting it, but I think we're overly obsessed with it, and especially those who shouldn't be obsessed with it, because we look at the long-term influence. How will it influence the coming generation? And so we look at the influence of the last generation, and what does it have on this generation, like in terms of, like, okay, we get that the Sonics, like Whiskey Superstar, you could draw a straight line from Whiskey Superstar to how most pop stars sings today. Yeah, the one that goes wishing to more it was the blueprint for Afropop music, right? And maybe a couple of other people with the big music, they have influences from Fela, Shina Peters, King Sonadi, and the likes. But in terms of like the ecosystem, right? How is the ecosystem structured to be able to sustain the growth and sustain development and propel the future generation to success? I'm not sure we really consider that, considering that we are obsessed with numbers. So we've moved from a quality-based industry to a performance-based industry. People care more about the performance of a project than of the intrinsic quality of the project. So for me, that's negative, and that's why you see when you talk about artists and icons, people whose success came before the streaming era, a lot of people from this generation are still unable to appreciate it, and it's shocking, right? They're still unable to appreciate it because they they tend to interpret success within the context of data. So when you talk about how nice held the country down in 2008, how Don Jazzy is the greatest Nigerian producer. I mean, I said it once on Twitter how Don Jazzy is the greatest Nigerian producer, and there were people who I will assume are actually young Nigerians, possibly Gen Z, and they were saying like, "Oh no, it's not true. It's not true." And some of their reason is that, where is Don Jazzy's Billboard? When has he produced a Billboard charting record? How many blah, blah, stuff like that? I was like, "Are you guys crazy?" you guys cannot like contextualize stuff and understand that okay, there's data, but these people actually have palpable, verifiable and still sustainable impact. And so everything is still just like everything is put through that pipeline of data. And if you have nothing to prove, like you talk about how nice was great, and they go and dig out his YouTube numbers and tell you, oh, look at his videos. They are not like it doesn't make any sense, right? So it's because of how we've become obsessed with this stuff, and it seems to be the only metric for success. And it's affecting the quality of how we make music. It's affecting, how we market music. It's affecting how the labels are running their businesses and the kind of type of talent they want to put out. It's also affecting how even the DSPs operate now, because there's now limited discovery, like it's more limited to discover new artists. I mean, before we tend to celebrate that, or we're celebrating that DSPs is making it easier for you to access music, for the average Nigerian consumer to get access to music across all classes, maybe the biggest catalog of music in human existence, right? But at the same time, it's now more limited because back in the day, okay, radio gets to tell you what you listen to, like whatever radio plays the most popular songs, and you have to just sit around and wait for them to play it for you to listen to it. But now, but with except you go buy your own CD, but with DSPs it changed. You could choose what you want to listen to. But in terms of discovering artists now, it's not limited because they tend to play you the most popular song. They limit what you can listen to what is popular, and it's all because of the numbers of obsession. Because artists like the big label wants to only be the one getting the big numbers, right? So they give them all the attention, right? They make it difficult for you to discover new artists through regular channel, except of course you go out of your way to play a couple of new artist music, but they suggest more, and it got slightly monotonous, right? But there's that part. So and even DSPs, they're kind of obsessed with numbers on their own now because everybody wants to be the platform with the biggest user, the biggest numbers, and I mean it's a market share model, so you get to understand, you get to appreciate it, but if it's not like taking a hit on the quality, then I don't think anybody would be bothered about it. We're taking it on our quality, the quality of output, and also how we perceive music and how we appreciate music. So that's what I consider to be the negative.
So how do we strike a balance?
I mean, it's just considering these things, right? Take a moment to consider and look at it and say, okay, are we obsessed with numbers? I think true, we're obsessed with numbers. I mean, me, you, media platforms, label artists, DSPs, we're all crazy about numbers. And even consumers, we're all crazy about numbers. So you have to ask yourself, like as an average consumer, that when I when someone plays a project or when I consider a project and I want to consider the quality, the success of that project, do I or when I consider a project generally, what the first thing that comes to my mind? Do I think about the numbers and what numbers it has and what numbers it can get and where it is charted, or do I actually think about the quality? So that's one way to look at it, right? And we have to also understand that this obsession with numbers, this obsession with vanity metric, it is actually making us incapable of seeing the big picture, the bigger picture. It is why again Afrobeat artists are saturating with the genre and try to go chase accolades because they feel like okay, we've done this, been there, done that. We need to do something new. No, it's why we are not able to appreciate the fact that within the whole context of Afrobeats in the world, we need to be able to tie the success back home and build the ecosystem and build the structure in a way that will sustain this growth and sustain and be able to propel future generations to success. So I mean, it's just a call to action for everybody, me, you, labels, consumers, everybody. Take a minute to consider. Ask yourself, am I obsessed with numbers? And when I consider data, how do I appreciate it? Am I interpreting it the right way? Or am I just like playing a robotic game of chasing numbers because that is the only thing that matters and that is the only metric and reflection of success, and I'm sacrificing quality and sustainability for this numbers obsession. So that's the question we have to ask ourselves, and that's the question the industry as a whole we need to sit down and consider, then find a way to strike a balance. And that's what